going to talk today about misinformation, disinformation, particularly as it relates to social media. But I'd like to have a discussion as opposed to me uh, providing a lecture because I don't know if I'm giving you the 40,000 foot view or 6 inches above the ground or a million miles in orbit. So uh, please ask questions and we'll discuss as we go along. So it all started with Santa Claus. You know, we all receive misinformation and disinformation. This is where the ears get covered. Told we're 3 years old that Santa is going to come and bring us presents. We all believe what we want to hear. And that continues on. We believe what our parents tell us. We're programmed to. We have to survive. And what we pick up from our parents is we pick up their misinformation. They've had ingrained. And, you know, some of their prejudices. A lot of these things we have to shake over. I'm just thinking this morning, for instance, my mother didn't believe in evolution, at least the last time I asked her back in the 60s. A lot of people still, there are people today don't believe.
I think she's right.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's, it goes long back. I'm a beginner at this. 35 years ago, I worked with a guy who had an awful lot more knowledge about Excel spreadsheets than I did, and anybody else in the company did. And I said to him, well, Rob, you got to teach us. You're advanced in this. Well, he says, we've got two groups of people here. We have beginners and advanced beginners. So we're all really beginners at this. Mark Twain said people who don't read newspapers are uninformed, but people who read them are misinformed. We've always had misinformation going around. Urban legends, I've got a few here. They're the alligators in New York City. 100-mile-per-hour carburetor. There's the Paul McCartney is dead one. There have been JFK conspiracy theories. Remember the Procter & Gamble logo from years ago that was supposed to be satanic, and then Procter & Gamble had to change it. There are tons of them. And you're familiar with these? Any you aren't familiar with?
Oh, yeah. Procter & Gamble, I don't remember.
Well, they had a little symbol that was at the bottom of their packaging. Supposedly, this was Satan worship. There were stories going on.
What was the symbol? Remember the symbol? 3 6s? I don't know.
No, it wasn't. It was. I think it was actually reflecting sunshine or something to that effect. They had to change it just because there was so much going around about it. So, what has changed? Well, I think really where things went badly is you had talk radio in the 80s and 90s that really started stoking people's frustrations over making a lot of very bad information. The internet and social media, they kicked in the 90s and have grown exponentially ever since. Nowadays we have platforms such as Twitter, which is now X, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, and the algorithms promote likes over truth. So you can spread whatever you want. That's what people want to see. It gets spread all over the place. And these platforms do a little fact checking. For instance, X was doing fact checking, but it cut out. Facebook was doing fact checking, it cut out. And we have QAnon that has spread both horrible and ridiculous stories, but people buy into them. As Winston Churchill said, a lie can travel around the world before truth can get its pants on. Then we have COVID. COVID resulted in millions of people scared, angry, frustrated, stuck indoors for months on end. And social media became echo chambers for the disaffected. And in fact, it was stoked. The came out with Facebook, for instance, that they were actually using algorithms to promote conflicts. And conspiracy theories abounded. Absolutely tons of them. And it hasn't stopped. So what's the difference between misinformation and disinformation? Misinformation is what people believe, send it. The New York City alligators, everybody spread that story around. Oh yeah, I know all about that. No, the alligators are in New York City. But disinformation, on the other hand, is deliberate. Somebody is intentionally sending around a story that suits their needs. A lot of it comes from hostile governments. We know about election interference by Russia, China, India. That's all documented. And AI is being used now. AI, artificial intelligence, made the generation of disinformation epidemic, and it's only going to get worse. AI is getting better and better. For instance, this picture goes around. Has everybody seen this picture?
No, what is
The picture shows on the left Mark Carney, and in the middle Ghislaine Maxwell, and on the right Tom Hanks. And supposedly this was taken on Epstein's Island, and it came out, I think, back in January, and it was immediately identified as AI generated fake. But people were sending it around. They wanted to either they wanted to discredit Tom Hanks or they wanted to discredit Mark Carney or both. And in fact, I had somebody send me that picture, and I looked it up. And 2 minutes later, I said, "Hey, fact checked it. So good." He said, "Well, you have to question if it was fact checked so quickly, and you have to wonder." And that's when I said, "That's it." Befriended him. Carl Sagan said, the late great Carl Sagan, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. AI generated picture is not going to do that this day. So what to do with posted information? Well, I think the first thing is everybody should be aware of confirmation bias. That is the tendency to believe something that fits your preconceptions. And that's where it's the most dangerous. Send around stuff that we believe. Core of the matter here is the SIFT method for sharing information. And we also have a craft test and a smart check. Use the SIFT method. Get information. First thing to do, the S in SIFT, is stop. Don't, even if you think it's true, don't share it with anybody. You have to go next stages is investigate. Investigate the source of posts, find out where they come from. Then go and find better coverage. That's the F. There are fact checks such as Snopes, all fact check, .org, and Halifax. And then finally trace the claims, particular quotes, etc., because a lot of times people trying to spread misinformation, disinformation, they will take quotes out of context, they'll take pieces of studies out of context, and send it around with a totally different conclusion. It's actually intended.
Yeah. Isn't part of the problem that you get so much information, you can't do this for everything you see.
No, you can't. But I think the first thing is, though, yes, begin with the stop. You get something that, don't share it. That's you don't want to dive deeper into it because there's just so much information there. And I got to plead guilty to this. I'm more careful about it now in the past. Oh, yeah, bad. Particularly during COVID, sitting around looking out at the park, wondering, oh yeah, here's another. So I think the first thing is stop. If you don't want to dig deeper into it, don't. But if you are going to dig deeper into it, then those are the next steps. And I think this is a little more academic. The CRAP test. So if you're looking, probably if you're doing more research onto something, you need to know currency, timeliness of the info. Something from 10 or 15 years ago that's outdated. Is it relevant to what you're looking for? The authority, source of the, are they good? Accuracy, reliability, and correctness of the info, and purpose, reason the info exists. Is it to provide? Yes, Paul.
This is one thing that I just don't get is why people do this. And I'll give you an example of something I saw recently, which was just so poorly done. I'm sure everybody sees all these videos that come out about how somebody saved a child from this or whatever, and it's a whole story about, or saved a fox and then grew up, milking this fox or feeding this fox, and the fox became a member of the family and stuff like that. I saw one recently where it was so poorly done. It was talked about how this dolphin had saved this sea turtle and pushed it up onto this boat where these El Salvadorian fishermen had rescued it from a net that was caught around it. Well, it was obvious that it was a shark that had the turtle in its mouth.
Yeah.
When they brought it to the boat, and then all of a sudden at the end it's flipper, and it was just so poorly done. I'm thinking, why do people do this? Like, what is the motivation behind it? What is it, Bill?
Well, that's it. There's a big emphasis these days with social media that people want to get likes.
And shares, I guess.
Likes and shares. And on the good side, we've got a fellow Rotarian over in the States, and he lives by it because he's a speaker. Caruso. Yeah, that's how he lives. Is he makes his career as a public speaker, and so he's on Facebook all the time and stuff. But a lot of it is. This is how people get their dopamine fix or whatever. It's this is great. I shared this video and I got 500,000 likes. That's what does it. It's like drugs.
Isn't part of the problem that some of these people, called influencers, have been able to monetize it?
Yeah.
Well,
So the
exactly.
more people that follow you, make these stupid videos.
Yeah.
Will follow you, and companies want to advertise on your site. Follow you. They turn it into money.
Has anybody seen? There's one that's come out recently, and it hits my feed every day, at least once a day. And it's this guy who claims to be this oil painter, and he's got this classic style that, to me, looks just like an AI created image to make it look like an oil painting, and people are commenting, "Oh, it's just like paint by numbers. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Looking at it, can you not tell that this is digitally created?
Yeah.
Anyway.
But he doesn't want to.
I don't want to be the guy who goes on there and
He's not gonna,
I'm not gonna.
I said, well, now, the pictures in that book, of Makiza in Tanzania and Makiza in Canada are AI.
Those
Paul-
aren't real life photos.
Paul-
Yeah.
Paul
I
just,
didn't-
Part of the problem.
Yeah, that's.
I'm feeding this crack test.
But everyone does it though, because I've created on a similar site, Mixbook. I've created books on there. They give you stock images and they give you a language and create your pages, so everybody does it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times, people are just kind of scrolling through and they see something and they don't even think and they just share.
Yep.
Right.
That's cool. Share. Share.
There's so many
Yeah.
times I see something there, it's like this anaconda is in Thailand.
Yeah.
And it's like, first of all, anacondas are not in Thailand,
Yeah.
and like, it's just AI, it's something.
Yeah.
Nothing, you can't tell it's real.
But I think people just mindlessly scroll and share and
That's right.
perpetuate the,
It makes
Right.
me worried for his generation,
Oh, I
like
know.
what is, like when he gets
Yeah.
older, because I'm really glad that I didn't grow up with social media or any of this.
well, that-
every time we pull out our phone or iPad, he does.
And if we never show him it, it's not something that we ever
Like
protected.
walked
Yeah.
into it and you just put it
Pure
aside
addiction.
because like, oh,
I have a 4-year-old that knows how to.
Yeah.
Better than you do.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, I grew up with that, none. I remember going through the system, yeah. And as a teacher, I had, to learn how to use these.
But we all knew how to share a story, like Bill was saying,
Yeah.
like alligators in New York. I mean, we hear that, then all of a sudden, we were in New York when an
Yes.
alligator came out.
Yeah.
And now we're telling that story.
I always thought it was a crocodile.
That's right. That's
You
the
were
story
misinformed.
With Bill on the radio yesterday, they were talking about I think it was like Brazil, Pakistan, China, India, all influencing Canadian political system by having operatives. And
Oh, yeah.
anyway,
They might not all necessarily want the same political party, so they're competing with each other. Misinformation put in. I promised I wouldn't talk about politics. And, well, then there's the smart check as well. Well, so that, maybe, yeah. Okay,
yes,
yeah. Well, that's for there probably. I had 3 personal success stories. One was a questionable post that somebody I knew back when I was a kid reconnected to Facebook. Occasionally he sends me some stuff that's pretty wild. And so I said, okay, where did this come from? So I checked on the organization that originally posted it. And then it said this was started by such and such an individual. Checked on that. Turns out that individual is a fashion model. Are you looking at something that's got scientific information from a fashion model?
next.
Bob, where are your shirts wet?
They used to say in vaudeville, never go on after kids.
Yeah.
talk.
What's the negative post on colonoscopy?
Well, somebody posted something about, oh, well, you shouldn't be removing polyps because they're actually the repair mechanism for, and I looked at that and I just said, see your doctor, check with your physician about that. Then another one was the resurgence of the Antarctic polar ice cap. This is something somebody posted. Yeah, the polar ice cap is coming back. So I looked at it. I went right to the source. I went to NASA and what they posted. And yeah, there was a resurgence, but it was like 1 or 2 years. And trend over the last 20, 30 years is it's really been deteriorating. So you have it going like this, and then there's a blip here. That doesn't mean the ice cap's coming back. It means you've got annual fluctuations. So, And I got somebody to acknowledge that, said it would be nice though if it was, yeah, it would be nice. The trustworthy sources. Okay. And I guess they're not trustworthy enough for me to scroll them up here.
Yeah, it's the book stuff.
Okay. I'll carry on without the screen, but trustworthy sources, none unconditional. But the most reliable ones are the Associated Press, BBC News, they're good, Reuters, NPR, the New York Times. And on my slide, I put down the CBC with a question mark, probably about a Bible. I've got a caveat, which is that saying, I'm not going to lie to you, but don't expect me to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
You know, some of the news sources, they won't lie to you, but they give you a certain amount of information. All of it. So you really have to be careful. Get multiple sources if you can. Untrustworthy news sources. Fox News, I have 887 million reasons why I wouldn't trust Fox News. Breitbart's another one. MSNBC, and again, I've watched MSNBC a fair amount, but it's probably, and that they're not going to lie to you, but they're not going to tell you the whole truth. Sky News, if you get it. Infowars came up. That was just a cesspool. Glad it was shut down. Joe Rogan critic said about him, he's uncritical of any conspiracy theories except for flat earthers. You won't have to get flat earthers time of day, but if it's a vaccine, conspiracy theory, or anything else, he just lets them run. Another thing is anecdotal evidence. There's a quote here: plural anecdotes is not data. Everybody had a story back in the day. Remember when seatbelts came in? Some of you grew up with them. But, you know, how many people were told, well, I had an uncle or an aunt, and they were in a car accident, and if they'd been wearing a seatbelt, they would have been here today. But, you know, the statistics are that seatbelts saves lives, and save probably tens, hundreds of thousands. Mandated back in the 70s. And another quote from Voltaire: more often as stupidity is repeated, the more it gets the appearance of wisdom. Now, the one that gets me here is that there are people who are convinced that the COVID vaccine has killed millions of people. They're convinced of it. You know that people are dying. How do you deal with that? Neil deGrasse Tyson said, you can't use reason to get a person out of a position to get into. So I've got some resources. I'll be glad to share the slide. So now at this point, you know how to sift, you know how to wade through crap, and you know how to come out smart. So, with that, it's not the end. You have to be vigilant. Share. Sure. Any other questions? Carlo?
Wonder, like, some people just think that certain news agencies and other ones are bad. A lot of people tilt a certain way or tilt another way. So how do you know if that person's tilting that way? You know, well, why wouldn't this one right? Like the ones I know, some of them are obvious. There's some I can't remember the news sources that are pretty obvious if you start reading them. That okay, where did this really come from? This person. But a lot of those same people are saying that the mainstream media is what you gotta watch out for. They're the ones injecting us with, the wrong information. What do we know which ones is? Kind of.
Well, no, I think,
That CBC with a question mark.
you know, CBC, I put with a question mark because, again, it's, I think they won't lie to you, but oftentimes they won't present the full story. I know a couple of cases that we'll get into here. I think we've all had that experience. Yeah,
I'm not too sure if this is a question or more of a comment, but you know, we used to trust the media.
Yep.
All of us did
You
because
didn't answer my question.
you know you look at individuals like Walter Cronkite and others that if they said something, you knew that it was factually based and they're bringing news, not opinion, news.
Yep.
Now all of a sudden you've got news channels like Fox that are masquerading as news programs. They're basically commentary. They don't fact check anything, but they also don't retract anything. That I remember Dan Rather. I don't know if you remember him, from American News, and he had some erroneous story. I don't know if he was forced to or whether he decided he resigned. He left the news
Yep.
because of a mistake that he had made that he should have fact checked. I don't know what happened to the credibility of news people that all of a sudden they're spreading all kinds of garbage out there and there's no repercussions. I mean, if any of us decided to malign somebody, like the My Pillow guy, and you keep doing it, eventually you get sued.
Yep.
And that shouldn't be the answer. And I really don't know how we can protect not only ourselves, but our children and grandchildren going forward if there's no accountability for misinformation.
The story is sexy, but share it.
yeah. Well, I think, again, some of the sources I've got are pretty reliable, like the Associated Press, Reuters, they're good. As far as Canada comes, the people who don't trust the CBC or say that they all lie or lie. Getting back to your question, Carl. Again, those are people who didn't get into that position for reasons. There's the Occam's razor that's applied, which is got a choice, simpler explanation is birth. And as I said to somebody during COVID, theories, I said, for your theory to work, it means that all the scientists and all the government agencies, all the countries that are involved in this, they all have to be glued together. He says, that's exactly what I believe, Bill.
And that's why they're going in and getting rid of everybody and firing
when
all
you
the
walk away.
scientists.
That's right. So I hope that answers your question, but
Well, kind of, because I mean, you say, went in and started firing people and getting rid of, people that were doing things for long enough time that they're understanding and have, based on digging in and finding out the truth, and we're discounting that because, well, that's why they got rid of them. Not telling us the truth. And they're putting people that don't know and have their own stories.
we can't handle the truth.
Thank you, Bill, for
Thank you.
that information. That was